Hi, welcome to Guns and Culture for 2018. Hope you guys had a good holiday. We're up to the French Connection. There's really nothing happening out with the Cubs because baseball goes into stasis because of the holidays. Harper, Norm, Machado have signed, so whatever. Anyway, we're up to the French Connection, which is a 1971 Best Picture. It's a crime story. It's a very exciting film. It's very, the plot's relatively clever and how all the pieces fit together. I actually, rewatching it, I wasn't all that thrilled with it. It's too plot driven for my taste, and then I sort of have a, absolute, distaste for some of the, how hollow the story treats certain plot elements, around, the drug war and, Popeye Doyle, who was played by Gene Hackman. So I actually I'm going to be fairly negative in my commentary, but I do recommend you see this film once, because it's a very exciting film, and if you like crime stories, I think you will respond to it better than I will. But anyway, let me bring up the trailer and some clips. I'll see you in a second. Okay, so The French Connection as a story is basically two sort of amoral narcotics detectives trying to track down a very large shipment of heroin and heroin, and it's there. One thing I like about this movie a lot is sort of its central scene is a little bit. I know this is a weird comparison, but there's a chase sequence involving a car and a train, which sort of forms sort of the central image of the film, because Popeye almost gets killed by the French guys importing the heroin, and it feels as central to that story as like the chariot race in Ben-Hur, but at the same time, the entire film sort of feels like a chase scene from beginning to end, because it's just trying to track down the French Connection guy. Now, with that being said, my major issue with this film is, even though it's very exciting and engaging, is there's not much behind the chase stuff. It is just a chase scene, and once you see it, and once you see sort of the resolution, it doesn't feel like the excitement gets less and less and less. And so this time, because I've seen it 3-4 times, it just didn't feel all that as exciting as the first time. And I know that always happens with movies sometimes, but this one there's nothing really behind it. And I think the main issue is the film doesn't spend a lot of time chewing the bones of Popeye Doyle, but not being being an amoral guy who the ends justify the means for him. And even though he does at the end, spoilers, kill a fellow cop, and that's sort of meant to be like just desserts because he fucked up really bad and everything like that, and they don't really capture the guy, so it's supposed to be like tragic. It doesn't feel quite right. It's not enough to give him a just dessert. So his sort of his brutality and his racism and his recklessness is not criticized enough. There's not enough of a fallout for him being for Popeye Doyle being how he is, and so because of that, the movie ends up just feeling kind of hollow. Now, this scene is the place where I feel like it should have had more reflection. So they're following the French guy. They're following someone connected to the main deal of the film, and they lose him because he ends up going to a place where they will be spotted trailing him, so they can't go. So then they immediately go to this predominantly African-American bar and looking for drugs and everything. And it's this scene right here where it feels... it's probably the second most famous scene in the film. The chase scene with the train is the most famous. But this is the scene where it feels the most, especially in context, which I'll show you next time, where it's supposed to be like, you're supposed to empathize and sort of identify with Popeye Doyle, because not only is he sort of the protagonist, but Gene Hackman's very charismatic. He's always been always plays sort of charismatic characters, and Doyle is charismatic. So you're supposed to sort of identify here, but he's actually engaging in some pretty like, this is just sort of police harassment, and it's borderline illegal. And so like, in a better script, the implication of, oh, we lost our main guy, let's go harass the black guys because those are easier targets, that implication is sort of present in the editing scheme because of the way in which the scenes are put together. But in context, it doesn't seem like the screenwriter actually had that thought. It feels much more like this is entirely plot driven. Because at the end of the scene, he's going to talk to a guy who's a police informant to get more information. So they don't come to this bar just to harass the patrons. They come here to get more additional information for the plot. Where I think in a better film, they would have actually split the two sequences and on the page. So this scene would have a much more of an implication of Doyle being an asshole, and just an asshole, as opposed to it just being mostly about getting the plot from point A to point B. And it's a huge problem because you're supposed to ultimately sort of emphasize, and not sympathize, but emphasize with Doyle. And I don't think the film, even though he's such a brutal sort of an asshole, like he's supposed to feel like he's our asshole because he's fighting the battles against drugs, especially since this movie came out in '71, and in the '70s there was a huge sort of crime wave, and like how there was a shit ton of terrorism movies after 9/11 because of 9/11. That crime wave caused a whole series of revitalization of crime stories, especially around drugs, and this because it was the zeitgeist that made it feel relevant. And so because of that, it feels like the film isn't quite chewing the amorality and dealing with it quite correctly, especially since that's the guy I was talking about before. He's actually a police informant. As such, the whole point of this scene isn't the harassment. The harassment is just sort of color. Excuse the pun, sorry. It's to get him to have the scene where I feel like what they should have done is had this harassment scene and have the two guys get arrested, and then they happen to go being back into the police station or something, and then they run into the informant, then they have this conversation, because then they went into the implication of him just coming to this bar to harass black people because he couldn't harass because he lost the white person, so he had to make his quota, which would have made the striking of his immorality much stronger. And then the other scene right here, I think ultimately makes the film sort of hollow because it doesn't deal with Doyle in the correct way, and he doesn't quite get enough of just desserts, is right here. These are the French guys. These are the main drug movers. These are the guys they're trying to catch, and this is another sort of sequence of just following around. And again, it's sort of plot driven, what's happening, blah blah blah. And that's fine. The issue with it, in terms of audience empathy or sympathy, is these are, again, maybe this is me growing up when I did in 2000, like French. It feels very la-di-da, posh. And then here they're in this nice little diner. And everything like that, and they're getting French on the, it's a very luscious, luxurious 5-course meal, and it seems very, very upper crust. And then you have this cop who's watching him, and he's clearly supposed to be cold because this movie technically takes place in like December. I guess you could argue it's a Christmas movie if you're one of those diehard people. And everything like that. And so it comes across like, and then, he's going to have a meal here, and it's going to be a slice of pizza and a cup of coffee, bad coffee, because he ends up throwing it away. And so it feels, it feels as if, like, we're again, so if you're supposed to just, it feels like the movie wants you to really identify with, Popeye Doyle, who's Gene Hackman, and it makes it feel as if his brutality and his the ends justify the means sort of behavior is okay because he's not one of these upper crust French guys, and it feels in a weird way to me sort of very like middle management, very much like Walter White. In the sense that, yeah, it's okay that he's a racist prick because he's against the elite, which I don't think that's the implication the movie should really be going for. And so it's again, it's such an it's an exciting film and everything like that. And I like Hackman. He's good in the role. Schneider's good. It's just the screenplay does not really deal with the implications very well, and it's very, very plot driven. Anyway, that's going to be it for Cubs and Culture. See you guys tomorrow. Have a good day. In fact, let me just rephrase the thing about Harper and Machado have not signed. So that's really holding up the market. So hopefully they sign soon somewhere, so then we can see what's going to happen. Okay, see you guys tomorrow. Bye.